Okay, well, this is it's called Interfaith Fort Collins Area Interfaith Council. History of 1979 to 2014. 35 years of tending the flame and the pattern today of churches in the community and religious organizations otherwise, the synagogue, temple, and the mosque, and how this has become more diversified community, obviously. Some of the early histories of Fort Collins, when it gets around to religion, they're only talking about Christian churches. They have to talk about more than that now.
When I came to Fort Collins, I traded pulpits with the John 23rd Catholic Center, Student Center. And so I preached in their church and he preached in our church. It just came naturally. The needs were great in the community and each of them could see those needs. And luckily, Father Frank Holland, he came to the minister's offices in person and inquired if we'd be interested in something that we do together. And he said we could do more things together than we can apart.
The 60s had some pretty hard times with, especially with people not ones who didn't qualify to go to university. People who got out of the war after World War II, but also then we got into the war with Vietnam.
Right.
And the connection with international affairs and lives of people right here in this community was such that it didn't make really any difference whether they were at the university or in town. If the need was there, something should be done about it.
Okay.
If something could be done.
The thing that was being very difficult for them was rent. And none of the churches had the kind of resources to be able to help somebody keep their housing. Mm-hmm. They've done analysis of what we saved the community by preventing someone from becoming homeless as compared to what it would cost if they became homeless and you tried to fast track them back into housing. And it is quite a saving to this community. So what I did then was go to the churches, to Interfaith, and I say, first of all, we need to find out how big is the need. Mm-hmm. So Interfaith helped with doing a survey, both here and in Loveland.
Well, the thing I liked about the Interfaith Council I had not seen before is it's what in the high-tech field is called an incubator. It creates programs and helps them get started, but then lets them go on their own. For example, the food bank of Larimer County started through the Interfaith Council. It started in the Geller Center. Bob Geller was the campus minister at CSU. And he had the idea of having a food bank for the community, and he made that space available, but the sponsoring of it was the Interfaith Council.
Community is the setting for the university, but it's not an island surrounded by the university. It's a place where you spend part of your time, and it's committed to being a learning community, but you can't have a learning community that's limited just by the university, because you're living in a larger community. Because the old Council of Churches died. Mm-hmm. It wasn't doing anything and just died. And we got a few people together here in this room and talked about what to do and what it should be like. Wrote a short 2-page paper about what it should be like.
And I don't know where it came from, but I had 4 things I was looking for in a religious community. Now I'm only 16 years old when this is going on.
Okay.
So I was looking for a community that worked with the poor. I wanted a community that in the title had Our Blessed Mother, because I had been raised with devotion to her. I knew I didn't want to work in an institution, so that meant I was looking for a missionary type community.
I can still remember the faces of the leaders that began the journey, and the glowing feeling and expressions as they saw things happen that they never happened before in the city.
How I became president? I'd done television work up until coming here on behalf of the interfaith community in the two preceding places. I found there was interest in the radio station to have what we called the interfaith dialogue. So I did it for 4 years. And during that time, I think people got to know me a little bit better, and so they said, would you like to be president? And so I said to one of my sons, aren't you proud of your father for being such a leader? To which he said, you spell that S-U-C-K-E-R.
Fort Collins, 40 years ago, it was a community of 49,000 people. The south edge of town was Prospect Road and Horsetooth Road. There were about 14,000 or 15,000 CSU students. Now it's 35,000 or something like that. And so the things have changed, and the community has grown, but also the needs of the city have grown.
Fort Collins Area Interfaith Council turns 40 this year, which means it's older than I am, which is just funny to me. But it's a real gift to be part of an organization that has such a great legacy in Fort Collins. Our current mission is to facilitate interfaith understanding, cooperation, and action toward the greater good in our community. And right now, that means we are a network of over 40 faith communities and nonprofit organizations in Fort Collins who spend time at least once a month trying to know each other better and do some good here in Fort Collins or in the Poudre School District area. It's an exciting time to be part of this organization.
And then we began to look around at all clergy and said, you know what? Clergy don't stay there forever, but we want this thing to go forever. And so they said, let's invite the laity. And that's how it kept evolving. And we had the laity involved because they were here for 40 or 50 more years. And that meant continuity and new possibilities. And eventually, there were not just the mainline churches, but also different religious groups that joined.
More recently, when I was on board, about 2011, we helped start Faith Family Hospitality. Churches, synagogues, religious institutions would make their space available to homeless, up to 4 homeless families at a time on a weekly basis. It turned Sunday school rooms into bedrooms. They'd recruit people from the congregation to provide meals. I started in 2011, and there are now, I think, something like 30 some odd congregations that are involved. But that's wonderful. It's been just taking off, and it's now, of course, its own 501c3. But it started through the Interfaith Council.
One of the first things that was really exciting was suggested by a couple of the women laity from our churches. They got their heads together and came back and reported there's a great need on North College Avenue where there are many people living, but there are low-income people, and they can't get medical service at all because they don't have the money to pay. And so we're going to look into that. And at the next meeting, they had secured 2 volunteer medical doctors who would take Saturdays free of charge to meet the needs of the people medically.
I found myself just in awe that it has kept going, particularly as a volunteer organization, particularly as one that is interfaith and ecumenical. Often those things can sort of come and go with people who are passionate about it. So, one staff member here, one layperson there will say, no, we've got to make sure this happens, keep it going. And the fact that Fort Collins has had that for 40 years and had 40 years of people really committed to making sure it stays, that it's vibrant, that it's healthy, that it's growing, that they're bringing in a new generation. That's something Rich Thompson really did. Most of us who he tapped on the shoulder at a certain time were all under 40. And that's not always the case. And it was a real gift to have him say, no, I want to see an intergenerational leadership.
And my concern is that people are not going to be looking out for their brothers and sisters that are poor. And that bothers me a great deal.
And that is one of the things I've really learned serving in this Interfaith Council is it's not just having the good feelings around, like, I think we should all work together, I think we should learn from each other, but it is, these are my friends, and my friends asked for my help doing something, or my friends feel concerned because there's a Nazi rally on campus, or my friends feel concerned because a brick was thrown through the mosque, or my friends feel concerned because we have an affordable housing crisis, and these are my friends who don't have places to live. It's about not just the citywide, public level relationships, but it really is those one-on-one relationships that make us so powerful.
My sweater, thank you for asking, because when I retired as president of the organization in 2016, I was presented with this sweater that has the emblem of Interfaith Council on it. It is because I had taken to ending the meetings with quotes from Mr. Rogers. Fred Rogers was a Presbyterian minister. Many people don't know that. In his television work, he was a good sharing person to share spirituality, not denominational kind of religion, but something that helped people with their meaning in life. And knowing that they were loved, and I would end the meetings with saying like, I like you as you are, exactly and precisely. I think you turned out nicely. I'll shout it to a star. I like you as you are. I wouldn't want to change you or even rearrange you. Not by far.
And then the young people that I work with give me hope, because there's a passion there. There are people, you know, what makes me want to retire is I do see people who can come and take over the work, and that's terribly important.
I think faith is a verb.
Okay.
And not a noun. Well, it's both, actually. It's a noun, sometimes the way you use it is a noun, the other times you use it as a verb. And it ought to be used more as a verb. And I think that that means you do something about it. You do something about it. And part of what keeps your perspective as you do things about it is a sense of humor.
We brought in also new members from nonprofits in the city. And so they became members of Interfaith because they were dealing with human needs head on.
For the next 40 years, I hope that we will be part of a national and international voice saying that difference is not scary. Difference is vibrant. That we don't have to look the same, believe the same, practice the same, love the same, live the same in order to be a healthy community. That perhaps it will be part of the fabric of Fort Collins and the US and the world to honor that and to live into that. I hope that we will have grown to the point where we have many more programs that help teach people how to speak across differences, because I feel like maybe we knew it at some point, but we certainly seem to be struggling with it right now. And I hope that we will have grown to the point where we perhaps even need dedicated people working with the city and the university on issues of interfaith cooperation, understanding, and religious equity in town.